too bad. Thanks for doing this. You seem a little bit nervous, like you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
I've never done one before.
How long have you been writing?
I have been writing. I wrote when I was a kid. I got out of it for a very long time, and then I got back into it probably when I was about 40.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So how long is a long time of getting out of it? How long have you been
about
out?
20 years.
20 years. What'd you do?
Not right. Yeah.
You didn't miss it. It wasn't something that you.
I had an experience when I was younger that sort of put me off, and I had to get past that, and then decide it was for me and not for anyone else.
Oh, interesting. So I checked out your website. I checked out your art too. I think you definitely have a nice voice. Um,
Thank you.
so as an audience member,
Hmm.
why else would you be writing? You'd write for me, right? Or the person that's reading your stuff.
I the way that I approach it is I'm writing for me. I have an idea in my head, and I really, 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 really want to get it out,
Hmm.
and work with it and see what I can do with it. And I'm my first audience. After that, I put it out there and just see if anybody else responds to it, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does because I do the same thing. I don't
Yeah.
expect any response, honestly. I just expect it to go out and disappear into the black hole that seems to be the internet nowadays.
Yeah, well, that happens a lot, and then there's the getting past the fact that maybe I'm just talking to myself. Yeah.
I'm out there. I've seen your Twitter. I don't know when we followed each other. Your name is magnificent, though, Agnes
Thank you.
Bookbinder. If I'm gonna be a writer, that's the name I want, right? It just
Yeah.
fits. Oh,
And
well, it's perfect. It's matronly. It's like
yeah,
welcoming. It is the best name I've ever heard for a writer.
thank you.
Agnes Bookbinder, author, entertainer.
Entertainer. Oh boy.
You don't consider yourself that's an awkward label to place on yourself, isn't it? I'm an
Yeah,
entertainer.
I think some people are naturally extroverts, and it suits them. I don't know that it suits me, but I do like connecting with people.
Yeah, this extrovert introvert thing is incredibly interesting because in a way you're kind of an extrovert in that you put out your words in a big way. Like, if you look at my website, there's millions of words on there that you could read that I put out in the world, but there's no way that I'm going to go in public and use as many words, even on a daily basis.
I
So
gotcha.
what does that make me? Am I an introvert or extrovert? I am
You,
putting myself out there a lot.
yeah. I would say, well, the fact that you put it on a blog, you are sharing it. I think that you're sharing it in a sort of tentative way, maybe. Does that make sense? Where
I hit
it's like,
publish. They say that hitting publish is one of the hardest things you could do as a
yeah, oh
creator on the internet. Just getting yourself out there at all.
yeah.
Can you,
Yeah.
20 years of not doing it, and now you're doing it, hitting that publish button, you have to understand just as well as anybody else how hard that is.
Actually, I tend to go the other way. I'm very much a shoot first and ask questions later kind of person. So I'll write something and work on it and work on it and work on it, and I'm just like, forget it, and I just put it out, and then afterwards I'm like, oh.
I think that's what a blog's for, honestly.
Yeah,
Just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
exactly. Yeah,
Short, engaging posts with something colorful to look at for a second.
yeah. And I have a really short attention span, and think about a lot of different things. So I tend to move from topic to topic to topic. And so I'm never bored. If anybody is bored
I'm
listening.
never bored either, honestly.
Yeah.
Often depressed, but never bored. There's so much to think about.
Exactly.
There's so much to do. There's so much. I'm so in the weeds on everything I want to create. If I sit and think about it, it's daunting, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I try not to think about it. One thing that I've started lately doing is when I put something out there, sometimes I'll kind of watch it for a little bit, and I'm trying not to do that. Just to walk away, go do something else.
Keep posting stuff is my current philosophy. See if you can get a post up a day and just put it up. Sometimes I edit them, and I think eventually I'll collect them and try to publish a book of something or other, right? Isn't that the goal? I mean, are you hoping to do the Amazon thing one day, or are you already on Amazon?
I am not. So I, for a number of reasons, didn't want to put anything out there for a while. And I'm at the point now where I want to try it kind of experimentally. So it'll be probably, I have a friend that I'm sending stuff to actually after I finish this, of a play that I wrote a couple of years ago.
Oh, cool.
That would probably end up on Amazon. And then I'm trying to also make books just to
Play. I mean,
just for the process.
You have me stuck at play. I am a theater geek. I love theater.
Oh, wonderful.
Because of theater, I'd love to see myself writing plays and getting things staged.
Yeah.
Where do you mind telling me where you are? You said Washington State, right?
Yeah, I'm near Seattle.
Near Seattle. I lived there for a while myself. I did this little dribble down from Seattle to Tacoma to Olympia, and then I just left. This was like 2008. There was like nothing going on there in terms of jobs. Is there a big theater scene? I didn't notice one. I knew that like big Broadway shows would bring their road shows in, but I didn't notice.
They do. There have been a few things that I believe they sort of trial here and then they take them back. And then there's community theater. There's quite a bit. We have a bunch of people who started out here. The director who recently passed away.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then like Chris Pratt and people like that.
Chris Pratt lives in the Seattle area. That's pretty cool.
Or he's from here, I think.
Oh, he's from there?
Yeah.
I think he got discovered in Hawaii. I think I know too much about Chris Pratt. I just realized that. I'm a little bit disappointed in myself now.
I know very little except that he's from here, and I've seen him in a couple of things.
And Passengers was good, and I don't understand why people don't like it. I like movies in the theater. I am really forgiving for movies that I see in the theater. I love Cats. Cats was so good. I've watched it.
Oh my gosh. I have not seen it. I'm kind of afraid to see it.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Part of its reputation. I know you need to get past that. And then the few little clips or stills that I've seen, oh boy.
How do you feel about Cats though? I mean, that's ultimately the question.
Look like something.
Like back in the day, you grew up in the 90s. We're about the same age.
Yeah.
I guess. In the 90s, the Cats was a big thing. If you like musicals, you probably listen to that over and over again. So, I mean, with that said, I went and saw it opening. I went and saw Star Wars, and then I saw Cats. That was my day. That was my day.
Cognitive dissonance there.
What's that?
A little cognitive dissonance there.
Not really. It was actually really, because Star Wars is horrible, right? So, I mean, anything compared to that is going to be good. So Cats was highly entertaining. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it. But do you like musicals? You like theater, so do you like musicals?
I do like musicals. I haven't been to one in forever. I don't think I've watched one in forever, but I grew up with them. So, you got that Sound of Music comes on and you're just singing along. You know how it is.
I've never, ever seen The Sound of Music.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So now
I can't sit through it. I don't understand why. I love musicals too.
Oh my gosh.
Cannot sit through
Oklahoma, same thing. I do.
Oklahoma. Man of La Mancha is my favorite.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All time. And I saw that live at a community theater too. So you have to understand that it's not good theater that I like. I just like the theater that I like. You know what I mean?
I get you.
Sound of Music is supposed to be amazing, right? That's the Julie Andrews in the Swiss Alps. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just cannot get into it. I don't know why. I should actually give it a shot because it's supposed to be a classic.
It is a classic.
And I've made myself watch Citizen Kane, which, if you can do that, you should be able to watch a musical.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you know what, get yourself a soundtrack. Listen to it, and then watch the movie. And then so you'll kind of know the songs before you get to them.
That was me and Cats. Man, I used to drive
There you go.
I used to drive my family crazy growing up. Just listen to it over and over again. So getting into that was easy. I love musicals. La La Land, or when it came out.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it either? I don't think you're a musical fan. I don't think that's something that you are.
Well,
it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. I'm just saying.
No, I didn't watch movies for about 10 years unless it had like a cartoon kid thing in it. So
Oh, I see.
yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult. My children will not watch anything that doesn't have cartoons. And I tried, like the old classic, what is it called? The Never Ending Story, like one of my favorite stories
Yes.
as a kid. I think they're just slightly a little bit too young though. But I'm pushing
Oh,
things on them. Like, let's watch The Dark Crystal, and they're screaming that they're scared. Like, why? Why, guys? I'm just a horrible father, I guess.
no, that's right. How old are they?
They're 5 now.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, they're a
They're
little.
young. They're a little bit young. I have pushed their boundaries a little bit, so maybe later on it won't be so hard to get them into these 1980s movies, which
Oh,
they made the best movies in the 1980s.
I'm trying to think. Oh, Labyrinth. Try
Absolutely,
Labyrinth.
freaking absolutely, that was the most amazing movie. The beginning bores them. I had to find the right spot.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Because they can't
yeah.
stand real people. They just can't stand it. They'll watch a puppet for a little while, but they just, oh man, I think YouTube has destroyed them. Like
Oh, yeah.
any kind of like flashy thing. Oh God, look, they're
Yeah.
quiet and staring at it. It's so peaceful. And then you realize what you actually did. I ruined them.
That's all right. You do what
When
you can, right?
you do what you need to do, I guess, and then not admit to it. No, I mean we studied music all the time, so now they're perfectly able to write music, and they
Oh,
know trigonometry.
wow.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
I was like, that's pretty advanced. That's all right.
They know how to do some trigonometry. I mean, I tried a little bit. Tried a little bit. I can't get my son to sit still long enough to do anything. Anything. My daughter, on the other hand, she draws like all the time. She loves it.
Oh,
My
wonderful.
son is just like a ball of kinetic energy.
Well, that's all right too. That is all
Yeah,
right too. There's something for everybody, I think.
I think so. I mean, I guess having a hard time seeing movies that don't have cartoon characters in them for the last 10 years or so, you did not get an opportunity to get into the theater scene.
Not much. No, not much.
Is that
A
a
little
regret?
bit. We there's one that's fairly local to here, but other than that, not really.
Do you regret that, or do you want to do it now, or
Not right. Not at this immediate moment. No, because I'm talking to you. But
well,
in
I have
general,
news
would I
for
like
you.
to do more? Yes, absolutely.
What too? It really scares the crap out of me. The acting is like one of the worst art forms because you're doing it right there in front of people, right? I
I
mean,
I
we
did
do
it for the.
something. We make it up in the dark. Like I write at 3 o'clock in the morning. The lights are out. You know, I taught myself to type just so I can just sit there in the glow of my monitor and blah 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 blah. And acting, you have to do it in front of other people. You have to come up with these ideas
Mhm,
on the spot in front of people who are judging the living crap out of you.
mhm.
It's so scary.
I did a little bit of acting when I was younger, and it's not so. It is and it isn't bad. It was okay when I could do readings,
Yeah,
where the script was in front of me,
memorizing. Oh God.
where I'm having to look at people constantly. That was a little more challenging for the nerves. Um,
I learned how to focus differently. I think
mhm.
it's just like I don't notice. I put them out of my mind. They're not even there. They're like a blur. You know,
Yeah,
because somebody started screaming at me in the audience. I think maybe I could be able to focus on them, but I try really hard to ignore them entirely. And if I'm on camera, like I did a couple of TV shows recently, and I just completely ignore everything around me and just try to concentrate on what I'm doing. And it's
yeah,
so easy when you're scared shitless because you just don't want to pay attention to the thing that scares you. And you know,
yeah,
the audience is scary. God, I hate it so much.
yeah. I think I do that thing where you tend to talk too fast, you know.
Yeah.
I've been having to, because I basically I teach for a living, and nowadays, there's a lot of having to do it over the internet, and had to work on presentation, not talking too fast, keeping it interesting but not too fast. Yeah, it's good for you, you know.
Yeah, my kids
Catch
are
a little bit.
doing telelearning. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. I used to say that we should give up on schools entirely and go to telelearning 100% of the time.
And now
And,
you think?
and now I think I was a complete and utter moron who should have kept his
Well,
mouth shut, because what's happening is not learning. With my children anyway, it's not learning.
yeah,
It's, Hank, come sit. No, Hank, come back. Hank, my daughter, she's a little bit, I can play with them. As long as you're interacting with them and they're making them do stuff, they're great. But what grade do you
yeah,
teach? You young or old?
yeah.
What,
The tele teaching is not for everyone.
yeah,
Student wise, definitely not.
not for teacher wise either. What grade do you teach? What age?
I do special ed, so multiple grades.
Multiple
Yeah,
grades.
yeah.
So you get to interact one-on-one with them during the day, your class,
Sometimes,
or sometimes, which
yeah,
is a lot better, I guess, in your case. It's
yeah.
easier to be, I don't know, man. In New York, they're talking about not having school come back into the fall, and that might be iffy too. They're not even sure if that's going to happen. Are you
Yep.
guys thinking the same
Same.
thing? Same,
Yep.
like not even having a 2021 school year?
Well, it would be basically coming back
Oh,
in 2021, probably.
oh, okay, coming
Uh,
back in the fall.
Maybe in the fall in a like staggered schedule or something like that. Yeah.
So
It'll be interesting.
before you guys locked down, and
Yeah.
now, are you able to create, or have you done any writing at all?
So I had about a month and a half, I would say, where all of my energy and I mean for everything, writing, breathing, taking showers, all of that stuff was going into trying to learn the technology.
Yeah.
And because it was a very, very steep learning curve, so I didn't get to, but I've slowly been working that back in as I've gotten a little bit more comfortable with what I'm doing for work.
Well, your space has been entirely invaded too, right? Well,
Yep.
your little room of your own is now the room of the school districts,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
That's horrible. How do you
Yeah,
do?
it's just, I mean,
What
it
have you
is what it is, but
what have you done to overcome that?
I've been really diligent about trying to set a schedule. I haven't been able to keep one yet, but just trying to set one. I am working on professional boundaries in terms of carving out time,
Mm.
because I also have a son, so I have to do his schooling as well. And just trying to set aside a little bit of time for self-care. And I would include being able to do stuff, make stuff in that. And I've been trying out different things in terms of what I'm making. So it's not always writing. I've been drawing a lot. I went through a period of time where I was drawing on myself because I was supposed to get a tattoo tomorrow. That's obviously not happening. So I've just been
Oh,
like
how long was that scheduled for? That tattoo?
months.
Wow,
Yeah.
I got five, four. What I have 9 tattoos on my body right now, and every single one of them was, "Hey, I've got some money. Let's go get a tattoo." It was
Oh yeah.
never, it was never like, "Oh, let's think about this for a really, really long time." That would scare me. I don't think I would ever do it.
Yeah. Oh,
Whoa, wow.
that's my favorite part because I get to like pick somebody that I really want to work with.
Mm,
They usually have a wait list.
yeah.
Um,
Seattle's big in the tattoo scene, if I
oh
remember
yeah.
correctly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I
What?
get to work with some good people, but not
What?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
But
unfortunately.
yeah,
Oh God, when are they going to open tattoo shops?
yeah. Slave to the Needle. There's a plug for them. They're very good.
Slave to the needle. Oh, okay, I'll look him up. Do you have any other work, or was this going to be your first tattoo?
I have other ones.
Oh, okay, good for you. How many do you
Yeah.
have?
I'm waiting. I have 2 right now. My first one was many years ago, and again, kind of put the tattoos on hold for a little bit, and then my latest one, so the second one, I got for my birthday last year.
Oh, good. That's
Yeah,
awesome. I want more work. I like it a lot. I really enjoy
it's
sitting for it, and the way it feels healing, and the way it's part of your body afterward, like a birthmark, but you got to pick it.
you have art on you. You're a walking art gallery.
So beautiful. I love it.
I love it. Yes.
I don't understand why Seattle. I think babies are born with tattoos now, like genetically,
Pretty much.
pretty much. I mean, the entire area is a tattoo.
Yeah.
I miss Seattle. I think it was the most beautiful place I've ever lived, honestly. When you could see mountains all over the place and that
Yep.
dumb volcano would just like pop out of the horizon at you. Okay, here's a thing that could kill you. And we
Yeah,
like
but it's
and we like
beautiful.
it. It's beautiful. It's the biggest mountain in the world.
Yes, and water and all the good stuff. Trees everywhere. It's
It's a
perfect.
gorgeous place. I wish I hadn't left, but I mean, honestly, life, right? It goes
Yeah,
where it goes.
you go where you go.
You go where you go.
Yeah.
Um, where is your life going from this point? Are you stuck in Seattle, or do you have plans on moving elsewhere with your art and creativity?
I don't know. I think at this point, I got to a place before all of the chaos of what's going on right now. I got to a place where I was slowly sort of releasing ties to things, and adjusting and reflecting and keeping what was working, and making changes and getting myself to a place where if I wanted to leave, I can. And if I want to stay, I can. I've got a pretty good setup right now. I cannot complain. I love it. My it's good. And we'll see. We'll just see.
I mean, what do you look at in terms of your little area that you can? I mean, have you been in the same place for the longest time, or is it new that to you as well? Are you one of those people that just kind of move all over the place?
I moved around a bit when I was younger, but I've been here for about 15 years.
15 years is a long time. I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
spent longer. This is the longest I've ever spent anywhere. This is 8 years. But before that was really chaotic and all over the place. I wonder if
Lots
that
of moving.
helps. Do you think that your experience traveling has helped, or do you think your experience with stability has been more beneficial for you?
I think both have been valuable experiences
Are
on
you
both.
an American traveler or are you a global traveler? Which one did you do?
I've done both.
Both.
Yeah, it's whatever mood strikes. I tend to like global travel more because it's more different from here.
Oh yeah, me too. I
Just a few
want to do
bits out
more.
there.
It's so freaking expensive though.
It depends where you go, but the travel part is, yeah, like the airfare and all that.
Time, exhaustion. I mean, it's just
Oh yeah,
exhausting to
it
go
is
anywhere.
exhausting.
It's like you get so excited, and then you spend the next 2 months. That's all you think about. Oh, I'm going to wherever.
Yep, and
You
then you
go
get there
down
and it's
there.
like, oh, this is
I'm so,
hard.
I'm so tired.
Yeah,
They're
which is
mean to me.
fine.
I don't know what anything is.
Yeah, that's okay though. It's that's part of the. I think that's why we do it, and it's kind of like childbirth, and that you forget and you sign
Well,
up
it's
to do
very
it again.
interesting. That's true, isn't it? I mean, you
Yeah,
basically forget how bad it is, and then you're like, "Ah, I could do that again."
yeah. Well, it's not all bad. That's the thing, is I'm trying to think of my worst travel experience, and I can't. Like, okay. My worst travel experience was probably also my best travel experience.
Tell me.
So, it all kind of evens out.
What was your worst travel experience?
My worst travel experience was I got trapped in France for 2 days with no money, um, which is kind of a scary thing. I don't speak French. I mean, like, I can pick out a word here or there, but I had no idea what was going on. I was due to get on a ferry. We couldn't make it to the ferry because there were student strikes and they were blocking the train tracks and all of that stuff. So I end up in France for 2 days with no money, like no money. And a very nice lady took me and this Australian guy in and put us up for 2 days and just took care of us. And so it could have been a disaster. And it started out as a disaster, but it ended up okay. It ended up wonderful. If you if you're looking for sort of reaffirmation that human beings are not complete crap, that was definitely one. Um,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
honestly, I have never needed help and had an absence of it available. You know what I mean? If I've needed
yeah,
something, I've always had somebody hook me up. I went to UF, University of Florida, and I was visiting my mom up north, and I did not have any money. And I'm a student,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I was driving back, and I ran out of gas in the middle of freaking nowhere. Alachua County is giant. There's just farms everywhere outside of Gainesville.
yeah.
What the hell am I going to do? It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I start walking, and 20 minutes goes by, and somebody pulls over, picks me up, and drives me to my apartment. It's like, the hell, man. I mean, that couldn't have been the worst situation ever. I was
Yeah,
thinking,
well, exactly. It could have been, but it wasn't.
well, it was the worst situation ever. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't as bad. You know, I mean, it's just
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
It's not
exactly.
as bad. I mean, a nice little old lady hooked you up and did what? She brought you to her place, or
Yeah, she put us up with her family. She had
what a
two
neat
sons.
story. Because honestly, as an American, you don't usually get to see what's behind those doors, what
No,
the family gets to live like. I find that
yeah,
fascinating, to be like the
yeah,
fly on the wall that gets to watch like the tiny little micro cultural things that people do on a daily
yeah,
basis. You never get to
yeah.
see it. I spent like a month in Rome, and basically my experience was that if you want to get ripped off, Italy's the place to go.
Yeah. See, that's unfortunate. I think when we approach things as tourists, sometimes that sort of relationship just gets set up. It's a transactional thing, you know.
It's true.
Um,
How can
it's
I get
hard
a?
to look again.
I got a job at a hostel, and the guy in the hostel is basically asking me what kind of backup I have. Don't you get a credit card? What's up with you? Do you have any money in your debit account? Why do you need a job? They're basically digging into me to figure out what they can get at the end of the day. And again, poverty is something I'm good at, so that I didn't have anything, so I lost that job in like 3 weeks. I was like, no, we can't get anything from this guy. Just get rid of him. So
Wow. Okay, that would be the bad part of humanity. That would have put me off, people.
it would have
Uh,
put you up. Well, people are horrible, mostly, right?
they
And
can be.
they can be.
And the thing is you don't know what you're gonna get fully until you.
Somebody I talked to had an interesting point about that. They said the majority of people are really, really good, but the fact that the news points out the worst of humanity, that small little fraction gets enhanced. So you think it's actually more people.
Okay, so I wouldn't say that people are inherently good. I would say that people are inherently people.
Yes.
But I do think that with what's going on, they do tend to focus on the really, really bad stuff, because it is dramatic. The human brain, the way it works, we are designed to pay more attention to negative stuff. It's a survival instinct. Um, and you have to like go out of your way to look for the positive stuff, but there's positive stuff out there.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't make news though, because it's not, flashy normally.
It's interesting, right? Because I mean, if you look at global news, you don't see the positivity. But if you back it all the way down to a smaller level, then you start seeing that good news. Good news doesn't affect masses of people. Good news like affects you
Yeah,
on your good moment. And then if you try to share it, you could ruin your good moment because people are going to get jealous of you and try to take it away from you. Oh, you know what I mean?
yeah. I think that it's still worth trying to share stuff.
So I
And
mean,
and again, it's like just see what
yeah.
happens.
Well, you blog, like the actual blog. You put fiction up like I do, and you blog. When you
Mhm.
blog, what are you trying to get at?
I when I blog, so I've been pretty bad about blogging lately.
I hate it. I hate it. I'm so bad at it. It's like journaling, right? Do you journal?
I do not journal. I Twitter.
Twitter. I do Twitter too, but
I
it's
should
more
I should
jokey to me.
filter more though. Maybe I should journal. But I just
I like your Twitter. I don't know why Twitter decided to all of a sudden show it to me one day. It's like, oh, here's Agnes Bookbinder, and like for the last like week, it's all been Agnes Bookbinder on my Twitter. I'm like, who is this
I'm
person?
sorry. I
It's
talk a lot.
what do you don't do any? I tweet more than you do. I went through your tweets just to see how long I've noticed you. It's like there's a bunch of them I didn't notice, but what I did notice stuck out. It's interesting how that works. I'm not quite sure what that is. Twitter's fantastic like that. But do you see the correlation to your website? Like people obviously like your Twitter. Do you see them go to your stuff too?
It's essentially that because I've been doing it for a while, I have a group of people that I would consider friends at this point. We've known each other, we've been through some stuff, and that they're very kind to me. And if I put something up on the blog, they are very kind and they read it, and have been very supportive. I try to do the same for them, because I think that's why we're all part of why we're all doing it in the end. Like there's that element of I have something that I want to just get out of me.
Yeah.
But also the element of like putting it out there, kind of a message in a bottle, see if
Mhm.
anybody responds to it. And when somebody responds to it, it's a very, it can be a very nice feeling, I suppose, if it's either positive or it leads to conversation. I haven't really had the experience of anybody being really negative or critical or anything like that. So yeah, I've been fortunate in that way.
Negative or critical. I mean, I maybe on Twitter politically, right? But yeah, the same thing. You don't really get nasty comments on stuff. You don't
Yeah.
do Reddit, I imagine then.
No.
Reddit,
No.
you get some nasty comments. I have something up right now that I meant as a joke. It's like negative 50 points.
Oh my goodness. So
Yeah.
they score you?
Oh, yeah, they downvote you and upvote you.
No.
So like, yeah, we both have our websites. We both have Twitter. I write a ton of stuff on Reddit. Like that's where all of my flash fiction originates and whatnots. You know,
Gotcha.
I really write a lot there. So sometimes I'll write a little 500-word story and like, whoa, it's going down instead of up. It's
Yes.
the
So
worst thing.
that's the stuff where like if I put something out, I will just put it out there and walk away at this point, because I was doing that thing where you kind of watch it. Is anybody going to read it? Is anybody going to
Mm.
read it? And then to have that combined with scoring, I think I would lose my mind.
It's good though for later on. I mean, I guess you have your career, you're a special education teacher, so maybe you're not concerned with the writing turning into something professional, right?
Oh, I get you. No, and actually, I made that decision a long time ago. Is I'm gonna that's part of where I get the like I'm gonna do it for me. That I'm my first audience. I don't care if I don't sell anything. I
Well,
really don't.
I hate to tell you this. I don't think it's really up to you whether or not an audience is going to enjoy your work. I
Well,
think
I
with
mean,
your attitude, it's going to cascade, and one day you're going to realize that, oh God, I'm rich and famous. What am I going to do?
I don't think I'm organized enough to become rich and famous, and I also
How do you get organized enough? I don't know. Let's look at
I
J.K.
don't
Rowling.
know. That's
What
the
did she do?
people who seem to do it where they do very well off of it for themselves financially. They approach it.
Publishing industry. Oh yeah, they do actually, don't they? Thinking about the
Yeah,
people that I've talked to in the indie game who do it well, they do it in a certain way, and it's very cookie cutter. It's very cookie cutter. Like
yeah,
you're an indie publisher and you have to do everything right. I mean, you're competing with the actual professional publishing industry that
yeah,
pay people $100,000 a year to do the job that you're trying to do for free. Oh,
yeah. I'm fortunate in that my mom is actually an author. Um,
okay.
yeah, so it's in the family. Although we are two very different genres. You know, we approach it very differently. And my mom,
What's
you
your
know,
genre? What do you write?
that's the thing is I don't know what to call it, but I do write poetry, and every time I'm like, hey mom, can you read this poetry for me? She's like, no. I don't do that.
It's hard with poetry, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
feel like
well,
we've talked
either
about theater being one of those, you wrote a play, the play's not as good as it possibly can be until it's on that stage directed and acted by other artists, right?
right.
You've done your part, but the other people need to come in and do their part. They
Yeah.
shape what you made to form other, I mean, God, I love it so much. When
It
they
ends
take
up different, yeah.
yeah, when you take a Shakespeare play that was meant for like 16th century audiences and they say, you know, we're going to cast this for 1920 Chicago or something. It's just, theater is just magic. I think poetry works like that too, where like it works very good verbally and being read aloud.
Yeah. A lot of it is how it sounds, at least the way that I approach it.
Exactly.
You have images
Cadence.
and such like that, but when I write, there don't tend to be a lot of images. I concentrate more on sound, just the way I work.
Are you a
And
music person? Do you have a music background?
a little bit, yeah.
A little bit. Are you a singer or a musician?
I would not label myself as such, but I do, you know, I sing with, you know, I'll sing along with the radio, or I'll sing at work. You know, it's a job skill. And I played instruments when I was younger, but then I got out of that.
So how's the poetry work of sound? Is it a song in your head that you're trying to get out, or is it just the rhythmic nature of the words forming together to make the total art project at the end?
It's definitely rhythmic. I also play a lot with the sounds, so like alliteration and assonance and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well,
But
I would say magic realism for you, right? I mean, you're not necessarily a fantasy author.
yeah,
You kind of
no.
have things
I
happening.
would be the worst fantasy author ever, because
Um,
I think the way that I work when I write is I'll start with something real.
um,
I always start with something real,
why
and
not?
I lack imagination, I would say.
What? That's impossible.
But then I remind myself, it's fiction, so you can do anything you want.
Anything you want. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
exactly
I
what it
have to
is.
start with something that I can see or that I'm familiar with.
I mean,
Um,
I think that's what all great literature does. I
yeah.
think every great piece of fiction says, I mean, let's take 1984. Here's a man struggling to do his job. You
Yeah.
understand that. It's universal. How come he's struggling to do his job? Well, there's thought police and there's a blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the world gets bigger at that point, but you recognize this guy is miserable and he can't do shit to change his existence. And
Exactly.
and it's universal. I think that works. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I've tried, like, you see people who do world building and all of that stuff. I would not be very good at that. And I recognize that as a limitation of mine, and so I'll leave that to the people who are good at it, because there's only so many hours in the day. And at this point, I just
No, like
work the way.
you're talking about going in and saying, okay, the law of the land is this, and the way the science works is that, and the political
Yeah.
system is this. I think that's so boring. Honestly, I just
I
don't like
I
it.
would I think I would love it. I like anthropology. I like sort of taking things apart and analyzing things. But I think that I don't have the focus. I don't have the patience. And I lack imagination. I prefer to start from something that's real.
Here's
And
my thinking right now in my life as far as world building is concerned. I do it out of necessity in the story that I'm currently working on. Because
yeah,
one time in the past, I heard, you're having a hard time writing a novel. Maybe you don't have enough pieces of other stuff that you can glue together to make the longer work. And it dawned on me, I don't have to start from page 1 to work to page 300. I can work on page 77 one day, work to page 93, and then do something else to fill in the gaps if I wanted to. So, I mean, the world building works in those cracks for me. What do they call it? That Japanese art form where they take something broken and they glue it together.
kintsugi.
So
Yeah,
beautiful.
kintsugi. Yeah.
It's kind of like how I write fiction.
I think that's a great way to do it. I part of my issue with writing longer stuff is I still work linearly, and that does.
Ew. I start over again
Yeah,
every day.
no, I get stuck.
You get stuck
I
on
get
what?
I
On
get stuck on chapter 14.
oh,
I have a longer thing that I was writing, and I hit chapter 14, and I'm like, I don't know how to do this well.
just need to write chapter 15. That's it. Chapter 14's done. Chapter 15, just 1-5, and there's blah, 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 and you start
Well,
writing it. And that's, I think, what I did with my first novel. This is only 5 years ago, so I'm not an expert. When I finished the damn thing, as I was writing it, my goal was to get it done by my children's birth. I just wanted to get it done. I was so stuck on this thing that was 75 pages long. It was a full story. All I needed to do
mhm.
was go in there and make every word forwards. That was my thinking. And I just couldn't do it. I kept reading the first chapter over and over and over again. Oh, it's good. Okay. Go to chapter 2. No, let's leave chapter 1 another time
Yep,
to make sure we haven't missed anything. And that
yep.
would be how I edited that novel for so many years. But then I said, you're done with chapter 1. Never open it again. And chapter 2, you're done with chapter 2. Never open it again. And if I got stuck on chapter 15 or chapter 14, I would just say, oh, what's going on here? What am I actually stuck on? What are you stuck on? Is it story?
So,
Or is it just, I don't want to do this. The story sucks.
so the story, that particular story is a very large story. It's small in the sense that there's not that many characters and whatnot. It's all very small that way, but it's big in terms of the ideas behind it. And so what ended up happening is chapter 14 needs to be done in a very responsible way. I feel a responsibility to do it the right way. And then beyond that, it's all sort of vague and foggy. So working linearly, the way that I was doing it, and it's not working, is that whatever I came up with for a particular chapter would tell me what was going to happen in the next chapter. So I'm very much a pantser versus a planner.
I am too. I just work with short fiction, so I already have
Yeah,
the
yes. And that's my answer, is just stick to the short fiction, and then every once in a while take a look at that thing and see if I can figure out what to do with it.
How long is it now?
80 pages, something like that.
I feel that, man. I feel it with just having an agonizing ache as to whether or not you're going in the right direction with something. Is
Yeah,
this necessarily done? And honestly, I don't know if I'm sitting on a treasure trove of fiction
yeah,
or, a mountain of absolute dog shit that needs
yeah,
to be shaped into something else. I
yes,
think that's the agony of this thing, that you get to say, I'm not really doing professionally, ha ha ha. And I'm like, I want to make money.
yeah,
Somebody buy my words.
yeah. Well, again, it's like, for me, it's not, I don't care if I sell it or not. But I do want to do a good job. And what I have written
You
up
want
to,
to entertain your mom too. You
oh
said.
my gosh, my mom hates it. And
What
that's
does
the other
she
thing.
write? What does your mom write?
My mom writes, she writes romantic mysteries.
Oh God. Do you
No, no,
smile?
no, no, no. But she's really good.
Oh yeah.
Um, so, but her approach, her genre, everything like that, it's completely different than what I do. Um,
Was
so
is she an indie lady or is she doing it professionally herself?
she's done both.
She's doing both.
Yeah,
I think romances are one of those genres where you could really succeed nicely in the indie field. Like it just doesn't
yeah.
matter.
She
I
does.
think it's
She
that.
does all right.
Sorry, say again.
She does all right. Yeah, she does
She
pretty
does all
well.
right. So I
Hmm.
mean, it's hard though because if you probably write that stuff, you like that stuff. You know what I mean? And your
Hmm.
stuff is not that stuff at all. You're writing more
No.
character-driven stuff, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, even your
And
paintings are kind of character-driven. You're looking deeper than surface. You're trying to find something there. I enjoy it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, plot and me are kind of like, we're on, not it's nodding acquaintance, you know. But I do like the psychology of the characters. I like the idea of just sort of approaching the world and sort of trying to figure out the world, I
Yeah.
guess, is why I do it.
I'm at the point where I think that there are two different types of people in the world. Only two.
Mhm.
There's 7 billion people and there's just two types. There are people that are really good at learning the trick of stuff. Musicians are one of these type of people where they can learn how to play a guitar really, really well, play piano, pick up languages, learn to cook. I mean, these people are the ones who operate in our hearts and things like that. They're really good at picking up tricks. And then everyone else, like us, are these artsy fartsy people that are looking for how things kind of, I don't
How
know,
things work.
work.
For me, it's how things work.
We're looking to get tickled, aren't we? I think more than anything else. Maybe that looking for patterns. We're pattern
Yeah,
recognizers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a very good way to put it. It is
The
pattern.
writing too, right? Is this a story? Where is a story at here? And then we delete 300 pages. Oh yeah, there it is. There's a story. It was only 3 sentences long after all.
Yeah. But I went off on this, tangent. Yeah. But then again, I mean, there's a
Yeah,
lot of
exactly.
great literature where that's kind of what they do. You have,
Still though, I don't know. Is it being done still? Where an artist is creating literature. I know the people who know the trick are doing it. I think J.K. Rowling's an artist, maybe, right? She's kind of a artsy fartsy person. James Michener though is not,
no,
right?
no. So,
Or
so essentially, I mean, anybody where you end up with a movie from the book, a lot of times those are your plot people. We got to
skilled
get from
people.
A to B to, yeah, skill people. Um, I think that there's
Picked
still
up the
stuff out.
trick of writing. They know how to type 300 words. I had a guy on my podcast. I like him. He's a nice guy, but he says he types like 200 words a minute or some bullshit thing. Like,
Holy
dude, it's like, man, he goes, yeah, I can, my kids and family, they'll go out on a weekend. They'll leave at 6 in the morning and they'll come back at 6 o'clock. I'll have a whole draft done by the time they come home. And it's just editing it from that point on. I mean, this guy has no followers and there's no reviews on Amazon. There's like nothing to say that he's successful at doing what he does. But the idea there are people out there that have practiced typing to the point where, I'm not a hunter and pecker, but I'm not very fast and I make tons of mistakes.
no.
Grammarly laughs at me. Like it'll just stop me in the middle of a sentence. look at all the red lines, buddy. You're not writing. I'm doing all the writing for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to co-author Grammarly on all my books. I swear to God.
There you go. I haven't tried anything like that either. I go into Word or I go into Google Doc and just type. We'll see how it goes.
See how it goes.
Sometimes it works out, and sometimes it, we're still sitting at chapter 14.
Are you though? Is it chapter 14, or you've been working on? I mean, the thing I'm working on right now is what, like about the same size, about 30,000 words, and which makes it about 150 pages or so. It's from another draft that was 65,000. I'm cutting the crap out of it, changing the setting or whatever, and now I'm on. I don't know what chapter, but now I have to rewrite something. I have to go back and rewrite 8,000 words because I made a change, and now
I have a hard time with that. Oof.
Right. I mean, that's the way every single story has worked, though. It's just, I want to be done with it. Yeah. It's just taking forever.
Yeah. But I try to, like, I feel exactly the same way, but I try to remind myself, no one is making you do this. And the reason that you're doing this is that you want to. And then I basically like go off and do some reading rather than writing for a while, just to sort of see what else is out there, and then come back to it when I feel refreshed, when I feel like I have a little bit more something in the tank.
I agree with your idea that being on a schedule is important, right? Yeah. Then you don't have any excuses. I feel like 4 o'clock in the morning is the best time to be in front of my desk with a cup of coffee. You know what I mean? Right, for an hour and a half to 2 hours, get your sneakers on, go for a run, start your day, everything's good. Yeah. If you don't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, though, you can't go on your run and the rest of the day is absolute shit. So the scheduling is so important. Even if for those 2 hours, I don't do anything, on my story. I write some flash piece or I twit. I mean, if you see me twittering, if I'm on Twitter interacting with you, I'm not doing what I'm going to do at all.
I'm kind of the same way. Maybe that's why I'm stuck on chapter 14.
Yeah, but I think you're not. I think you're stuck on chapter 14 because you're not working on that schedule, like you said. Like your itinerary isn't saying, okay, chapter 15. You didn't do chapter 15 today, Agnes. Work on chapter 15.
No,
and the next day it's like
for most things, I would say yes. For this, it really is in terms of thinking processes and making sure that things are done responsibly. It is that's where I get stuck, is not wanting to do it wrong. Perfectionism.
Yeah, man. I have a friend who wrote a 700-page novel, or I don't know how long she said it was. She's like one of those, she's a PhD in poetry or something. And I'm like, dude,
wow.
The way she writes, it's like, it's seriously, you just have a hard time believing a human being put those type of poems out in the world. And she said that she has this novel on her shelf. I'm like, I'm not going to do anything with it. This is heartbreaking. Do you think you can get to that point and say, chapter 15 is never going to happen because this novel is dead? I can't do anything with it. I'm going to have to start something else.
Oh yeah, no, I could okay, this is a skill that I've learned from work, is I can walk away from things, no problem. If I hit something where I'm like, this is stupid, it is a waste of time, and even though I thought it was genius at the beginning and I'm working through it, I will put it down, I'll walk away from it for a while, forget about it, come back to it after I've forgotten about it, and then look at it again. And if it's a bad idea, if the fundamental underlying idea is bad, I will put it away and never think about it again. There might be a line that I can use from it, so I'll keep it for that, just to like pick apart like a vulture. But otherwise, I'm not tied to anything that way, because that's, for me, that's it's kind of like it's an ego thing. I put all of that time and all of that effort into it, and now it's, I can't, I just need to make it work. Well, no, I don't.
I think honestly, I'm like totally indifferent where to discuss that, but John Scalzi said something to me that made me mad. Not to me personally, but he said it on Twitter. Mm-hmm. He said he doesn't have any chest books. He doesn't have any single book sitting on his hard drive going, I'm not good enough to sell. You wasted all your time. He devoted the energies to make them all publishable. Now, I mean, he did go to one of those prestigious universities, so maybe he has the brain power to do that trick. Maybe he's a trickster. You know, maybe he has the typing skills down and the grammar skills and everything down to where it just happens really fast and every
Yeah.
novel's perfect.
Yeah.
Or maybe he just does the work every single time and makes them something that they're not. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I just, for me, it's the idea behind it. If the idea is fleshed out and I've thought through it and I'm like, this is actually a good idea. If the writing sucks, which happens, then I will come back to it and I'll deal with the fact that the writing sucks. But if the underlying idea, if there's nothing there, there isn't, and I need to move on.
What do you go for? I mean, what ideas do you like? What tickles you the best when you?
It is moment to moment. It is so what happens where I'll know that there's something there is that I'll start with, I'll give you an example. There's a book that I haven't written yet that I will get to at some point. I've done a little bit of research on it. I need to go back and do more research on it, where it started from a poetry series that I did on animals, just different animals, and a very large spider that lives in Suriname. And learned that the first person who basically showed the world this spider was a female artist who was living in Suriname and painted it and sent the paintings back to Europe, and that was like 17th century. And just the idea that there was a woman who was out there doing that in the 17th century, I was like, what? And I just sort of went with that, where there was some aspect of it that was just really, really interesting, and what is that like, and wanting to sort of explore that.
Historical fiction, right? Is that
Yeah,
what oh my God, it's so hard. It's so good for you.
Yeah, with some magical realism, because then I started reading about just with the history there. There was a slave uprising, and I tend to get really big with those things, so it takes a lot of time. But I think that the fact that there was a woman who was out there in the 17th century painting these giant spiders, and there was a slave uprising that was successful, by the way, like that's a period where you can do a lot with that. That to me is fascinating.
It definitely is fascinating. The
Yeah.
idea of the magic elements too. If you're talking about slaves, I guess you're talking about shamanistic, like voodoo magic or something like that, or
Yeah. So I started reading West African mythology, and it just, where there's sort of this, you end up falling down a rabbit hole, basically, where you start out with one thing. There's a giant spider in Suriname, and you end up with West African mythology, and there was a woman who was divorced and went to South America in the 17th century and was a painter, and she had taken her daughter with her. And like, what is that? That you can go down these rabbit holes and sort of put them all together in an interesting way.
absolutely. I love it so much, and I also like to mess with it too. I like to take one of those little rabbit hole, one of those little holes that you dug out, and make it the whole world. Make that character so important. It's unbelievable. I have a story, if you're interested, on Twitter. The thing that's pinned to my top. I rewrote Winston Churchill's Boer War, and I had him being captured by a miner and his.
Oh, fun. I mean, and that's the thing is, he gets captured. I'm like, oh, fun, but because it didn't happen.
He did get captured. He was a POW, but I think his family ransomed him out of captivity, and basically he went back to South Africa and he re-enlisted. He was so mad, and he had his little escapades in the Boer War. But my story was he was captured, and instead of being ransomed back, it just got worse and worse for him.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, if you think about what Winston Churchill was, how important was he? Did he galvanize England, London during World War II? If he wasn't around, would it have made a big difference?
Mm-hmm. So like alternative history?
Alternative history, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I also like that.
Like, what if? Yeah. So and those are the big questions. What if? And why?
Why?
Yeah.
Especially now, you have so many conspiracy theories too, and we don't know the history of the moment. We don't apply our lives, the things that
Mhm.
we question now, including JFK's assassination.
Mhm.
What was that, 60 years ago almost? You don't know the answers, and you probably won't know the answers for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Unearth some document.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and I mean, they release things slowly, and then you have what's going on in the world right now, and it's moment to moment, and they're not releasing everything, and so most people have very vivid imaginations, and they use them to come up with plausible explanations, implausible explanations, and we don't know yet.
yeah, I mean, we don't know yet. Was
Yeah.
it a lab accident? Was it a wet market? I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And there's got this trade war happening on top of it. China and America, they want to renegotiate. America's walking away from the negotiation table. Oh, there's a pandemic.
Yeah.
And it's so, oh, Iran has it too. Oh, that's interesting. It's China and Iran, the worst people on the planet right now for Americans, quote unquote. I mean, yeah, how could you not? You know what I mean? It's like the Epstein thing. Oh, he hung himself, but it doesn't look like he hung himself. What actually happened, guys?
There's
Man,
actually a dead person.
there's a
Like,
dead person.
yeah.
There's a dead person. Nobody's telling us the truth. Nobody's saying anything. Nothing makes sense that you people are saying. What are we
But
supposed to do
the
here?
thing that you can do with that, that you can do in the present time with fiction, particularly if you call it fiction, I think um, where you could do some good actually with all of this craziness that's going on, is if you explore that stuff through fiction, you can sort of pick apart what are the important things that we need to look at here, regardless of why it happened. Or you can say whatever you want in terms of why it happened or how it happened, but exploring like how does this happen?
How did we get to this point, right? I mean, I look at that and I wonder about all the parts and pieces that were necessary to get us into, say, a war in Iraq, right?
Yeah.
And you're talking about decades worth of manipulation to get to the point where, oh, they've got weapons of mass destruction. Let's go find them, guys.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
they didn't just create that. I mean, 91, the Gulf War happened, and we used that. And then before that, oh man, the connections are so amazing.
Yeah.
And if you
Well,
dig into history, if you dig into like those little moments, even like Charlemagne or
yeah.
whatever historical figure you want, it still is as detailed as it is today. Just a lot of that stuff is gone. It just
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I mean, it's stripped down, right? King Richard was a hunchback homosexual who died in a field. I mean, basically, that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Things move on.
Yeah. Although then again, you can look at it and be like, how did that happen? Move it to present day and see parallels, I guess.
I mean, how much did that connect to the present day, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
know that dude caused the Plantagenet line or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I mean, but what his lies and deceit caused were many more lies and deceit. Um,
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
if he hadn't have been, I don't know. I mean, it's so. I mean, we're talking about Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Shakespeare's so brilliant. Man. So it's been an hour exactly right now. I don't know when we
Oh
actually started, like a little bit after, but it wasn't that bad, right?
no, it was relatively painless.
Relatively. I mean, yeah, some pinches every once in a while. I accidentally kicked you that one time, but hey,
Yeah,
some
man. Watch your
bruises.
feet.
So,
Yeah.
what do you want people to know about you going forward? Do you have any?
Going forward, that I enjoy being creative. I enjoy writing. When I don't enjoy writing, I enjoy reading in order to enjoy writing again. There's always inspiration out there,
You know
and
what's interesting to me about that is I can't read anymore without staring at the words, wondering, is this good writing or bad writing? It's all ruined for me. It's all ruined, really,
oh
honestly.
man. Well, and okay, and that's the other thing I would like people to take away is that if you feel like things are getting ruined for you, go find something that isn't ruined for you and enjoy it.